Welcome and good morning to Mike Ferry TV. It is the week of July 7th through 13th, and boy, do we have an exciting topic for you today, which you probably are going to turn off as soon as I say it. So I guess I won't give you the topic. I'll just talk about it first. Just kidding. We're going to talk about working with buyers, which I think at this point, if you've listened and watched the last 8 to 10 weeks, you know that one of the most painful experiences you can have in today's market in July is having to work with buyers. Now, obviously, why? Because you and I both know, and we've said this time and time again, that almost anything you would list for sale today is almost a guaranteed paycheck within 90 days. And with the inventory throughout North America being as low as it is, and the demand for listings being as high as they are, the competition for you working with a buyer really actually reduces your chance of getting a commission check. So what we want to do today is try to figure out a way to help you when you are working with buyers to make a sale. Now, I will say this to you, and I've said it time and time again. When I did the tour in May and June throughout Southern California, Nevada, Arizona, I told every audience the same thing. If you want to keep your production down, if you want to do 4 or 5 transactions a year, the answer is working with buyers. That's the answer, work with buyers. And how do you find those buyers? Hold an open house. It's the easiest way. Because see, you're not going to have a lot of traffic, you're not going to have a lot of qualified, motivated people, and you're going to end up showing 5, 10, 15, 20 homes per buyer, and maybe writing 5, 10, 15, 20 offers because of all the competition on every listing. So if you're going to work with buyers to keep your production down, follow these rules. However, these rules we're going to discuss today are actually going to increase your chances. But I want to ask you a question first. Last week, we talked about closing the sale. And I said to you, would you please smile and say to every buyer and seller, would you sign the contract, please? Now, did you think about that concept when we talked about closing and negotiating the last 2 weeks? Because if you think about it, with a buyer, it really comes down to, would you sign the contract, please? Okay? We also talked about the fact that if you're going to be involved in closing and negotiating, you have to control your ego. How is your ego? Now, when you talk about working with buyers, we all get puffed up in the chest, think we're real hot stuff, because the truth is, you know and I know, selling a buyer a home requires 0 to little talent or skill. Listing a property requires a lot of talent and skill. So therefore, if you're showing properties to buyers on a regular basis, you're in essence saying to me and to yourself that you don't have a lot of skills in real estate. You're taking the path of least resistance, which becomes a very challenging and difficult thing for you, because the odds of you taking a buyer out today and selling them a house and getting that contract completed are slim, because the number of people competing to show that property and number of offers being written. So what we want to look at today is, if you're going to go ahead, let's follow the following rules. And I wrote down, there are 2 critical rules in working with buyers. Rule number 1 is 100%. Now, I'm going to ask you, what percentage did I just say? Well, Mike, I heard 90%. I heard 70%. Yeah, that's typical. I think the answer was 100% of your buyers should be pre-qualified by your lender. You need to know the facts of life. You need to know the qualifications. You need to know what they can afford to buy and what they can afford to pay monthly versus what they tell you. Because they're always going to think they can do more than they can. So by having the lender pre-qualify every single potential buyer, you're getting the real facts as to what the lender is saying they have for down payment, what they can afford to buy in terms of gross product, in terms of the gross sales price, and in terms of monthly payment. Rule number 2 is you then pre-qualify them in depth. Now again, go to MikeFerry.com, download the pre-qualifying scripts for buyers, and ask them every single question. Because you have to find out their motivation. What are they trying to accomplish? What are they trying to do? What would they like to have happen? And need to find out what type of home they want to buy. So think about that. Now, there are 3 types of buyers that in the marketplace we have today that you should consider working with. Now, I'm going to tell you, wash your hands of 90% of the buyers. List property, list property, list property, list property, list property. Message come through yet? So what do I want you to do? I hope you're yelling list property, because that's what we want you to do. But if you're going to work with buyers, there are 3 kinds of buyers you could work with. First, past clients who are highly motivated and qualified to buy at this time. Second, sellers of yours that want to list with you and buy again, provided they're priced to sell. If they're not priced to sell, you can't show them property. And then third, highly qualified, highly motivated referrals that either you get from your database or from other Mike Ferry trained agents. The next point, I need to help you understand that showing property is a process just like listing property is a process. So instead of throwing them in a car and saying, what do you like to buy, and trying to show them those homes, watch, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, showing you a property and selling you a home today revolves some very specific steps that I need to take you through. And again, I want you to download the process and the steps, which you can do, and then virtually follow that process or step. Because if you follow the process, it guides them through the loops required to buy a house. And you'll know their level of motivation and qualifications if you follow the process. So tell them the exact process you use. Now, if you don't have a process, again, download our process and use it. It's there for you to use. But the next point I wrote down, which is so critical, only show property when all decision makers are present. If everybody's not going to be there, don't waste your time. Because see, even though we all know that it takes one to buy, two to sell, try to sell one or the other a house with the other one not being present. Good luck on that one. If you want to create a divorce quickly, try that process. Try to force one person to buy. I'm always going to have both. Well, Mike, why don't I just show the wife some homes, and then if she picks up what she liked, we can sell the husband the home? Because you're wasting your time. That's why we don't do it. Next point I wrote down, have the buyers meet you at your office every time, no exceptions. Worst case scenario, the property they drove by they want to see is 10 miles from your office. Pick a central spot, a coffee shop, a restaurant where you can meet them. Don't meet them at the house because you lose control. See, if you meet the prospective buyer at the house, when you walk out of the house, they get in their car, they make a left turn, you make a right turn, they're gone. You lose them as a buyer. You have to be in control. They have to be in the car with you to continue the sales process as you go through showing property. And then, of course, here's the hard one. Never show more than 3 homes at one given time. What I get a kick out of is companies still preview properties on their company caravans. I mean, it's almost ludicrous that companies do it, but they do. So you go on a company caravan, there's 9 homes to preview. You know and I know by noon you cannot remember any of the homes you saw, and you're a professional salesperson in the real estate business, and you can't remember the homes that you've seen. How do you expect a buyer who's buying on a very emotional level to remember 4, 5, 6, 7 homes? Here's the rule. Show them 3 homes that are good for them and ask them to buy one of the 3. If they say, well, they're too big, they're too small, they're too this, too that, then I select 3 more. In today's market, good luck in finding 3 more. Show 3 to home to create less confusion, and it creates more urgency. But then the next rule I wrote down is really a fun one. So much of the training for years in showing property to buyers has revolved around the fact that you show 3 homes, which of course I agree with. But they're going to say show them a dump home first, a dump home second, and then whoop-de-doo third. So when they see whoop-de-doo, they get all excited and buy it. I think that's a very poor choice in terms of what a real estate agent should do. Why not show them whoop-de-doo, 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 so when you're done showing 3 whoop-de-doos, they are compelled to buy one because they've only seen great homes. If you show them a dump, whoop-de-doo, they haven't seen enough whoop-de-doo to make a decision. Be smart in the decision-making process as to what you show. Very important. And then here's some very interesting thoughts as we wrap up today's message. I always believe that each of us should have some standards that we follow. And the standards in this case, okay, could be as simple as this is what I do. This is the process I follow. But I think you have to be very clear to explain to your buyer that you have standards. You don't want to waste their time. You don't want to waste your time. I don't want to drive you around for hours on end. I don't want to drive me around. I don't want to delay the process over the course of 6 weeks when the process could be completed today. If you're in a position to proceed today, let's proceed. If you're not, let's talk about it in the future. Standards of some type. The problem we have is because we don't prospect, oh, there goes the P word again. Because we don't prospect, we don't have standards. The higher the standards, the better chance you have of making a sale. So I wrote down some sample standards you may want to consider using with buyers. Watch. Pre-qualify for financing by the lender. That's the standard. If they're not pre-qualified by the lender, you are not going to show them property. Mike, what if they want to pay all cash for the home? The lender has to pre-qualify to show you where the money's coming from. Otherwise, you can't show them property. Watch, standard. You pre-qualify for the type of home and their motivation. And if the motivation to buy is not there, you can't show them property. If they don't know what kind of home they want to buy, why would you show them property? Watch, all decision makers have to be present. Common sense. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I have to show you property, but you both have to be there. Well, can't you show one and then we decide later? No, we don't do it that way. That's not how I operate. Now, Mike, what if they don't like your standards? Bye-bye. Take a hike. The Queen's wave. Get rid of them. Go list property. Here's another sample standard. They always meet you at your office first. Sample standard. Have a buyer-broker agreement signed. Okay? Sample standard. Never show more than 3 homes at a time. Guys and gals, people that show property rarely have standards because they don't sell a lot of homes. So let me ask you this question. Between now and Christmas time, do you want to do 3 deals, 5 deals, 10 deals, or 20? Because the truth is, if you want to do more than a few, you want to do it listing property. So let me throw this challenge out to you, the same way I'm going to throw the challenge out to the people at the retreat. Hopefully some of you will be there. And the challenge of the retreat will be, I'll ask them all to write down 10, 20, 30, 50, or 100. Then I'm going to ask them to circle one of those numbers. And that number they circle represents the number of listings they're going to take between now and Christmas. Because whatever number they circle, that's how many commission checks they're going to get between now and Christmas. The money in real estate today is working with sellers, not buyers. But if you're going to work with buyers, re-watch this video about 10 times this week. So I wrote down a couple of assignments, okay? No exceptions. If you're showing property this week, have your lender pre-qualify. No exceptions. You pre-qualify, have them meet at the office. And no exceptions. The pre-qualifying separates you from the competition. Do you have the courage to be separate from the competition? Are you going to be one of the best or one of the rest? So your homework assignment is to follow the rules to separate yourself. Can you do it? I think you can. We'll see you next week.